Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I am your host, Samuel, and today we have with us a very special guest that goes by the name Duston Harper. Duston's story is interesting because he actually worked with us here at Evolve Success and grew his social media brand through one of our programs. And when I met him, he was demonstrating success as a medical sales rep. And today, he now works for a staffing and technology company as a sales rep with an extremely bright future and a whole new level of opportunities in front of him. He started in hardware sales, became a sales rep, and then is in his position today. But I'm not going to sit here and give you all the details because I'd be spoiling the interview. I'm going to save that for the interview. I'm just glad to be able to share his story, to be a part of it, and to bring it to you as our audience. If you're someone that wants to get into the industry, this is an episode for you. If you're someone that wants to do more within your position as a medical sales rep, and you're thinking, where can you take the rest of your career? Again, this is definitely an episode for you. And if you're someone that wants to grow their brand on social media, whether you're a sales rep or a leader, and you're thinking about, I really want to grow my brand, I've demonstrated success, I want to share more of my expertise, I want to reach an audience, or I even want to reach more customers, then you want to listen to this episode and hear from Duston Harper. As always, we do our best to bring you innovative guests that have fascinating contributions to the medical sales space, and I really do hope you enjoy this interview. Duston, how are we doing today?
Doing well, Samuel. Glad to be here.
I know. I'm glad that you're here. You know, you're a fun guest to have because we've actually worked together, and you've experienced quite a bit in the time that we've been together. But you know what? I'm not going to spoil it for the audience. I want them to hear it from you. Why don't you tell the audience who you are and what you do?
Appreciate that. Yep, Dustin Harper here. So I grew up in the Midwest in Ohio, moved down to Georgia for college, and kind of stayed in the Southeast ever since. Currently, right now, I am the VP of Business Development for Snap Nurse, and I had a couple different industry changes before that.
Okay, Snap Nurse. So right away, everyone's like, what's Snap Nurse? So why don't you go and tell us, what is Snap Nurse and what's your role in that company?
Yep, so local company here in Atlanta, Georgia. Both of the founders have a clinical background, and basically what they were doing was trying to solve some of the problems with healthcare staffing. You know, years ago, people would still be faxing over resumes, and it's a very kind of clunky process that has a lot of gaps in it. So they were trying to bring technology to make it faster, to connect hospitals and nurses. So right nurse, right specialty, right place, right time. So it's almost sort of like an Airbnb type platform that connects hospitals and nurses very quickly. And there's a short-term and long-term aspect to it. And there's also ways that helps the nurses and the hospitals, which I can elaborate on.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so the $1 million question I have is, what attracted you to Snap Nurse, and what were you doing before you got into Snap Nurse?
So before Snap Nurse, out of college, I actually worked in power tools for almost a decade. So I was with Milwaukee Tool and had a great run there. Awesome company. Was able to work with Home Depot and a lot of places like that. Kind of hit a plateau, wanted to change. And one of my friends worked at Stryker. One thing led to another. So I went to Stryker back in 2019. Which was interesting timing with the pandemic happening soon thereafter, but had another awesome experience with Stryker. I kind of learned medical device. I feel like I got 10 years of experience in 3 years because of all the stuff going on with the pandemic. And
what exactly was your role in Stryker? Like, what were you doing?
Yeah, so I was in the medical division. I was focused on infection prevention and safe patient handling. So products that would help nurses not get injured moving patients around, or things that would help patients not get an infection like pneumonia once they were in the hospital. So it was very nurse driven, which is kind of unique because you usually think of like very surgeon focused. I wasn't in like the OR or anything. I was more like the rest of the hospital. And I worked with like nursing leadership, supply chain leadership, as well as other places like that.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so you're working with nurses. So nurses were your call point, or was it more healthcare administrators were your call point?
It was a mix for sure. I feel like anything in healthcare these days, you have to go to multiple call points, but it was very nurse driven. I'd say like more than half. And then you also have administration and then supply chain because you're dealing with physical products. So there's certainly a clinical and a business side to it, but I was in front of nurses every day, whether that be like end user nurse, like on a unit, or like a chief nursing officer or nursing director. So it was pretty diverse, and I would help out with implementations, trials, things of that nature.
Got it. Okay. And then what turned you on to Snap Nurse? How did you even find out there was a company like that that helps with healthcare staffing?
Yeah, I think a lot of the conversations I was having was related to staffing because every time you were in a hospital, you would hear and see all the issues with ratios, with people being understaffed, with like all these urgent issues that were coming up. So it was hard to get anything done a lot of times because of all that. So I started hearing more and more about staffing, became more knowledgeable about it. And then I heard some people talk about Snap Nurse because it was local in Atlanta. And I looked it up and saw some articles about some of the growth. And I was like, wow, this is kind of a cool story. It's in Atlanta. The founders are clinicians. They seem to be very nurse focused. And then from there, it kind of started kind of growing with that interest.
Wow. Okay. All right. So, I mean, you were a striker for 3 years. Before that, you were in hardware sales.
Yep, power tool sales. So if you go to Home Depot, to a brand called Milwaukee, it's like a red and black drills and all kind of different products. So I was in power tools for almost a decade.
Wow. And that was a store-based position, or you were door to door, or what did that position look like?
I had several different roles. I actually was lucky to have 7 roles over the time I was there. Everything from kind of at a Home Depot store selling to a consumer to working with Granger and Fastenal, more strategic accounts, to calling on Home Depot corporate office in Atlanta. So I had a variety of different roles as that company was growing, but it was mainly B2B for the most part, small
Got it.
businesses to like a Home Depot.
Got it. So you transitioned all that experience into your medical sales role with Stryker. You got this focus on nurses. Then you started seeing that there's an issue here, and something more work needs to be done in the space of contributing to the staffing of nurses because of the shortage you were noticing. And then that brought you into opportunities with Snap Nurse, and today here you are. What exactly is your role in Snap Nurse? What's your day to day?
Yes, I'm only a month in, so definitely continuing to learn and grow. But yeah, I'm really focused on business development and sales. So specifically in Atlanta and Georgia, trying to kind of build the brand up, hopefully help a lot of providers and hospitals locally as well as the nurses. So trying to grow the brand, get into new accounts and grow our existing business. And then we are a growing company, so there's a lot of new avenues that we potentially could take, and there's a lot of newer opportunities as staffing changes weekly in a lot of cases. So we're always open to new ideas and partnerships. So I'm looking at things like that as well.
Fantastic. So, one thing that excites me about today and having you on, Dustin, is, something that I believe in and that I've seen work for so many people that we do as a company is the power of social media. I just recently had a guest that we talked about it, and you and I kind of have a lot to talk around about it. But I don't want to spoil it again. I want people to hear from you. Why don't you let the audience know how you and I met and what we experienced together?
Yeah, I'll definitely give you a little bit of props, not too much, but I'll give you a little bit. But yeah, so back, let's say a couple of years ago, I started listening to your podcast. So I got interested in that when I was in medical device sales. So started hearing a lot of your podcasts and guests. And at some point we connected through that and kind of had a one-on-one conversation. And what we talked about was really kind of growing your personal brand. And I'd always liked LinkedIn, and I would kind of be on there like liking stuff, but I never actually posted anything. And I was always like, man, I have some pretty good stuff I could talk about, but I didn't have a process or anything behind it. So when you and I chatted, we kind of talked more and more about it, and you offered a program that kind of focuses on personal branding, LinkedIn, and some other things. And it was kind of out of my comfort zone getting into coaching, but it was something I took a chance on, and it honestly worked out phenomenally as we kind of talk about this story. But yeah, LinkedIn and then your program was a big part of where I'm at right now. So thank you for that.
Oh no! Look, I mean, this is something that we do. Thank you for working with us. But I want to get into what you truly experienced. What was your journey like before you started implementing some of the things we would discuss? And then what did you start to see that kind of changed the way you presented yourself on the platform?
Yeah, the first thing that stands out is like, I think to put yourself out there, you have to have the right mindset. And that's a big part of it. So you and I worked on that morning routine, different things of that nature that kind of puts you in the right state of mind. Because if you're posting stuff and putting yourself out there, like you're always constantly thinking about what other people think. And a lot of people don't
Absolutely.
post anything because they're worried about what other people think. So I would give you some credit there, because the mindset thing is something that I've really latched onto after the fact, which has helped in a variety of areas. So that's number one. Number two is LinkedIn or whatever platform. You have to have kind of a process and a program for it. You can't just like kind of do it when you want to. You have to be consistent and you have to have a process behind it. And that's not easy, right? So it takes some time to kind of get into that. But I mean, a lot of the things that we talked about a year plus ago, I'm still doing today
Right.
consistently. So I think the process and consistency was another cool thing that you provided me.
Got it. Now, I talk to a lot of reps and a lot of managers and a lot of business owners in the medical sales space, and some of them are very savvy and they're like, you know what, I'm paying attention. I'm seeing the power of social media. Others are like, I don't know about social media. Some people say it works, but I don't think it does. Talk to the audience a little bit about what opportunities can be created through that platform. What, and you can speak to things that you've experienced directly, things that you've seen. If you were to talk to a stranger and say, look, let me tell you why it behooves you to even think about getting on a platform and just starting to get active, what would you say? What would you say they could be exposed to or could experience?
Yeah, I think these days you have to be different. So there's like so much the same things going on if you're a salesperson talking to a medical provider. So these administrators are getting hit up all the time with like pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch, and they can't get away from it. So unfortunately, some people ruin it for everybody. So if you're not different, you're just going to fall into the same bucket as everybody else. So I think LinkedIn is a great way to be different. Second thing is that I've had many customer relationships built up over time purely from LinkedIn, because it kind of builds up that know, like, and trust. And you almost, by the time you meet somebody in person and you've been interacting on LinkedIn, you're already friends with them. So I have several examples of accounts and people that I'm good friends with that purely started from LinkedIn, and probably for months was just LinkedIn before I actually met them in person. And then last thing is, and this kind of just naturally happened, is all the stuff we worked on with kind of my focus on LinkedIn. If I would not have done that, I would not have gotten connected with Snap Nurse, because a lot of that happened purely from LinkedIn. So I think from your career standpoint, from your personal branding standpoint, a way to stand out and be different, it's a no-brainer. And if you look 5 or 7 years from now, what that sales rep will look like, if you're not doing this now, you're going to be light years behind.
I love it. I love it. Um, you know, we just talked about it, and there are a lot of people out there that they really want to get active, but they're scared. Like you said, they're scared of what people think. They're scared they have nothing to offer. They're scared they don't know enough in their industry to be considered an expert in any capacity. What would you say to people that have that sentiment?
I don't think you have to be an expert. That was something I think at the beginning I was kind of worried about too, is like being a subject matter expert. But the reality is I'm never going to know as much as the clinicians anyway, because I don't have that type of background. So I think you want to be more of like a peer. You want to be interested in what they care about. What are their biggest problems? What associations are they part of? If you become like-minded like that, and you become thought of as more of like a peer, not just a salesperson, I think that is step number one from my standpoint.
Got it. Good stuff. Okay, so let's take it back to Snap Nurse. So now you're in Snap Nurse. How are you utilizing social media to promote what you're doing in Snap Nurse, and and what are you doing to position yourself as any kind of resource?
Yep. So definitely try to post a few times a week. You never want to be selling on LinkedIn, which I know that's something that we talk about too, but you're more talking about problems. You're talking about situations. You're trying to get feedback or give good tips and tricks. So I consistently try to post. I also have a lot of people that are maybe influencers or targets that I try to collaborate with and like and comment where I can and be involved in those discussions when I see it. And then I also started to do stuff like this where I'm on podcasts, whether it be sales related, healthcare related, nursing related. I'm trying to continue to kind of ingrain myself in that community. And luckily I've had opportunities to do stuff like this. So it's been fun. So I'll continue to kind of ramp that up, maybe some more videos. But other than that, that's probably the main few things.
Got it. Anything you'd like to share about Snap Nurse? I don't know what you're at liberty to say, but maybe some things you're working on, some things you guys are doing. Please let the audience know.
Yeah, I mean, from a nurse standpoint, how it can help a nurse or other clinicians, we do other clinicians too, is it really gives them that flexibility. You hear flexibility a lot in the workforce now. Healthcare is behind that compared to other areas. So if not everyone wants to work 4 or 5 days in a row at the same place, or not everyone wants to work for 5 years at the same hospital. So Snap Nurse can give you that flexibility where you can maybe pick up some shifts at other places. Also, you have the opportunity to get paid same day. So if you go and work a shift, you can get paid right afterwards, which is a big benefit. People might be working paycheck to paycheck or living paycheck to paycheck. So that's cool. And then it's also become kind of a community in itself. So we have over 350,000 clinicians and nurses on the platform throughout the country. And it's become kind of a community in itself where people will go on assignments together and they become kind of friends from it. So it's continuing to grow. And from a hospital standpoint, if we can save them time and money dealing with staffing, that's a great thing. So we also try to partner with the hospitals to give them more flexibility with their own internal staffing and provide those resources when somebody calls out, that they can maybe use us as an option, which could prevent burnout and help retention with their own internal staff. So we really look at it from both sides, like helping the nurse or the clinician, and then also helping the provider be more flexible and saving them time. So that's kind of the main thing I'd want to point out.
That's fantastic. One thing that I think is so cool is, the Medical Sales Podcast, we focus on the medical sales space. And I think people don't think enough of not only how beautiful it is to be in the actual work of medical sales, but the opportunities medical sales can lead you to. I know that you probably had to do a lot of deliberation to take yourself from medical sales into Snap Nurse. And I'd like to believe that there are probably a lot of people out there that they've thought the same thing, like they've seen an opportunity or they've seen a need and they want to step into it. What allowed you to say, you know what, I am going to now step into this need that I can clearly see and explore and be a part of the solution and actually step out of the traditional role in medical sales?
Yeah, it was definitely not an easy decision that I made lately because Stryker's a great company and I had an awesome experience there and things were going well, quite frankly. So typically that's not when people are looking at other stuff. But I think, sometimes you might be more attractive when things are going well. So maybe that's how it worked out. But I would definitely make sure that uh, the morals and that kind of it factor are there for you. So if you are going to explore something, the whole nurse connection for me was really what drew me in and some of the growth that they've had. So I think you got to look at that. You want to weigh the pros and cons of leaving medical device or whatever it may be to go to somewhere else, because it does take a lot of time to build up a medical device. So walking away from that can be tough. But if you're going to do it, you got to do it the right way. And then I also think of, like, how many chances are you going to be able to do something like this? Snap Nurse was very unique from my standpoint. It wasn't just like another job to me. So I was like, if I look back 10 years from now, would I regret not taking this chance and decision? And I thought that it made sense. So I would probably look at those few things before you make a major decision, but certainly was not an easy one, but I'm really happy where I'm at and what I'm doing now.
That's fantastic. Another thing I want to highlight is, you were in a very unique space within Stryker, which is also in medical sales. Talk to us a little bit about how vast the medical sales arena is. A lot of people just kind of look at it as OR-based roles or pharmaceutical sales, and you and I both know that it's so much larger than that. Tell us a little bit about the different fields there are within medical device sales that people that are interested in getting in should really be thinking about.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think people just assume you can kind of walk right in, but they don't realize the gauntlet process to get in and how many specialties there are. And that's still overwhelming to anybody. I mean, I still learn about new things all the time as far as what specialties you can get into. But yeah, you want to do your research, right? So not every specialty can be the same. An OR type job, you're going to be working cases. You could have weird hours. You could have different schedules. that's a high pressure situation, being in surgeries with surgeons. So that's not for everybody. You have capital equipment with like beds and stretchers where maybe you're only getting sales once a year in some cases, and then it could be kind of dormant because of like how big of purchases they are. What I was doing was disposables, which can be viewed as a commodity. So you have that type of hurdle to get over. And then there's a lot of other stuff in between. So I think really, like, courses like yourself, I think, help people. It just might seem kind of foreign to do something like that, but it's really hard to break in with these companies. And typically the interview process is like 60 to 90 days and 7 to 8 rounds of interviews, at least from what I experienced. So I think services like yourself or connecting with people like me to get feedback, you have to do that, and you have to network and kind of really understand the day to day, or go shadow with people to kind of see what it is really like. But yeah, do your homework and don't just jump on any opportunity that comes up, because I think it definitely varies depending on your personality and the company and type of specialty.
Sure, sure. Talking about disposables and considering that you came from a different industry, you were in sale. Actually, you had a number of different roles in the hardware industry and you took it into disposables. For anyone out there that's thinking about medical sales, if disposables might be a good fit for them, what kind of lifestyle should they be looking for, or what kind of things should they be looking for to see if disposables could potentially be a good fit for them?
Yeah, I think the better thing about disposables is like you can kind of more make your own schedule versus like being on call with the OR and the surgery schedule. So I think disposables, typically you should be able to make your own schedule more and kind of work the hours you want to. Of course, you're still going to have some late nights and early mornings, but that's to be expected. Also, you really need to have a good clinical and business understanding. I think a lot of people focus a ton on clinical, which makes sense, and you rightfully should, because you're impacting patients, nurses, surgeons. But you also have to have a good understanding of the business side. There's been all kind of crazy supply chain issues over the last few years. So if you don't understand the business side of it and plan the right way and be able to negotiate with supply chain and materials management, then it's going to be tough for you. And then it takes a long time to get anything done for disposables, especially if you're dealing with like a system or IDN or a bigger project. It's typically going to take at least 6 months to close something from start to finish, and probably longer than that these days. So you have to kind of be in it for the long haul. And I feel like some of the other areas might be a little bit quicker, but disposables, from my experience, was a much longer sales process, which doesn't always match people's personalities. So those would be the few things that stand out to me.
Got it. What kind of personality does it match then?
Well, I think if you're looking for some transactional, like quick hitting type of sale, it's not going to be the one for you. If you're looking at more relationship building, like having to deal with 10 or 15 people to close something, being almost like a project manager, guiding it to the finish line, that's going to be more for you. So it's more relationship driven, longer term. There's a lot of different business units involved, from supply chain, nursing, etc. That's more of the type of people that tend to do well. So I had experience like with Home Depot and these like long processes. So for me, it kind of matched up pretty well because I already had that experience. But if somebody else came from something different, like a more quicker sale, it could be a tougher transition to kind of get used to it.
That makes sense. All right, one other thing I want to get into. So Stryker, big company. I mean, global leader. They got a lot going on. Snap Nurse, startup. Tell us a little bit about what it's been like to transition from that type of environment to startup environment.
Yeah, it's definitely another thing I had to think about before making the transition. I've always kind of historically worked for big companies, so I think that was something I kind of wanted to change it up a little bit too. But yeah, you think of a Stryker, there's a lot of processes, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of, sometimes it takes longer to get things done, but and then there's a great brand behind it too. So you can always fall back on that awesome Stryker brand, and everybody knows it. They think of medical equipment when they think of Stryker. So there's a lot of awesome things behind it that can always back you up. But it can take maybe a little bit longer to get things done, or if you want to change stuff internally, you have to go through these longer processes, and it's not as quick, right? So with Snap Nurse or with a smaller company, maybe the brand recognition isn't there as much. That's something I'm working on to try to build up in Atlanta and Georgia. There might not be as many processes because it's growing fast. So, but from my standpoint, that gives me an opportunity to try to help build those processes and give my perspective. you can try new ideas really quickly. Like people in a smaller company, probably more open to new ideas quick, which can be cool because if you have something that works, like you can kind of pick up on it fast and other people can start trying it too. So I think there's pros and cons to both sides, but you have to be more patient, I think, with smaller companies because they are growing. There's more processes that will continue to get built out. They're adding more people. So you just have to be a little bit more patient from my standpoint.
Got it. Okay. Let me ask you this. So, when it comes to people wanting to get into the industry, what message would you share with them today?
I would say it's not as glamorous as it may seem at first to get into medical device, and that's something that people maybe misunderstand at first. It's a great industry, no doubt, and I'm very glad that I was in it and I learned so much and still have a lot of great connections. But you definitely have to put in the work, and it usually, depending on the territory you go into, it's going to take at least 12 to 18 months to really establish yourself, and that can be a grind. So I think if you're going to go do it, be in it for the longer term and make sure that you kind of recognize that on the front end.
Okay. For those that are in the industry and maybe they're looking to get a promotion or just looking to excel in their current role and do more this year, what would you advise them?
I say don't be afraid to be different and to take some risks. I think all the times that I've had kind of some elevation in my career and life has been when I took like a bigger risk. And of course, you want to have to weigh the pros and cons. But every time that I've taken a risk, I've kind of accelerated my career and other things in life. So I think definitely do that is what I'd recommend.
Okay, and then for the last audience, or one more I want to ask about, for those that are listening that maybe they're in the industry, they've been in the industry for a while, or they're leaders in the industry, and now they want to develop a brand. And they want to be more well known as a resource to their colleagues and customers. How would you say is the best way to go about doing that?
Yeah, first off, I mean, to give you some more props here, I mean, you have a phenomenal course, so I'd highly recommend that one to anybody. And if anyone has any questions, they can reach out to me directly. And then second thing is you really need to kind of have a niche and something that's different. So you really need to think about like what do I want to talk about? Who is my target audience? Who do I want to get in front of and kind of build up over the next couple of years? And last is just how you need to have that giving mentality. So like who are you trying to help? What are you trying to solve? Have that giving mentality, and over time, it should work out.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Over time, it should work out. How long would you say it took before, consider when you started to getting real traction? How long would you say that took?
You have to be consistent, right? So you have to be doing this stuff daily or at least multiple times a week. But I would say after about 3 months or so, I really started to notice some traction with whether that be connections, conversations, more exposure on posts, and really just kind of accelerating. And to me, it became kind of fun, right? It was a good way to change it up. There's a lot of negative stuff going on in healthcare sometimes. It's a good way to kind of change it up and stay positive. So
that's fantastic. Dustin, it has been amazing talking with you on the podcast today. Anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
No, it's been an awesome time. I appreciate it, Samuel, and look forward to continuing our relationship.
Definitely. All right. Thanks again, Dustin. And that was Duston Harper. Such an interesting guy with such an interesting story. You got to look at Dustin on LinkedIn. If you're by a computer, you have your phone, look him up, and you'll see, he's literally become quite a brand, and he shares a level of expertise that his customers, his audience definitely wants to hear from, and he's just continuing to soar. If this is something that intrigues you at all, then you definitely want to visit evolveyoursuccess.com or just reach out to him and ask him, say, hey, what's this experience been like? And then come check us out at evolveyoursuccess.com, select improve sales performance, and look into our LinkedIn program. This podcast is created for people in the medical sales space and people that are interested in the medical sales space. We have these guests to show you all that there's all sorts of lives to lead within this space, how vast it is, how many different fields there are, and how Regardless of your background, there are ways that you can get access to this industry, become a medical sales rep. Regardless where you are in your position as a medical sales rep, there are ways that you can excel your performance and experience success like you've never seen. And even as a leader, there are ways to get your team exactly where you want them to be. We are called Evolve Your Success for a reason, because no matter what level of a success you're experiencing, it can always evolve. And no matter what's happening in the external environment, the medical sales space, healthcare, technology, it's always evolving and pretty rapidly. So as long as you're a part of that, there's always going to be an opportunity. So if you're someone that wants to get into the industry, again, make sure you visit evolveyoursuccess.com, select Attain Medical Sales Role, fill out the application, have a discussion with someone here, and let's talk about a program that can change your life. If you're someone that's in the industry, you're a medical sales rep, and you're wanting to improve your performance, you want some specific detailed help, some specific detailed tools that can transform the way you do things, again, visit Evolve Your Success, select Improve Sales Performance. And lastly, if you're thinking about this social media, let me tell you right now, it's not going away. It's only going to grow. And you're thinking about growing your brand to either reach more customers, demonstrate a new level of expertise, or even find a new opportunity, then again, visit evolveyoursuccess.com, improve sales performance, and then select our LinkedIn program, and let's have a discussion. As always, we're going to continue to do our best to bring you innovative guests that have the most wonderful contributions to medical sales. So make sure you tune in for another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.